Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about something different from regular investing. We're going to talk about building a business from the ground up. So I've built a business before, and I thought that this would be a really fun, tongue-in-cheek way of talking about some of my experiences and some of the things that you want to consider when you're starting a business. This came to mind this past week because I had a friend who happened to be in the mental health space who wanted to start her own clinic. And so I gave a couple of ideas out to her to make sure that she didn't fall into the same mistakes that I've made in the past. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and try this new format out today. If you like it, like and subscribe. Let me know how I'm doing and make sure that you give me a little bit of feedback so that way I can know to put more effort into these if you enjoy that. All right, now let's learn how to lose money starting a business. Of course, there's going to be a standard disclaimer here. So you can go ahead and read through that. Don't sue me. All right, so you want to start a business. This is one of the best ways out there to lose money. All right, 80% of restaurants close within 5 years, 70% of startups fail within 5 years. You know, the School of Hard Knocks, it is an expensive tuition, but a lot of people stand by it. So if you want to talk about what I did, I spent $70,000 building a lifestyle app. Basically, it was this company called Mindful, spelled with a Y, because of course, why not? No, because the original domain was already taken. So I had to figure out something that was relatively what I wanted to do, but still not too different from the original word. I could have gone way more creative with a terrible long name, but Mindful actually was relatively reasonable when I looked at a lot of other things. So this particular company ended up being a bad investment, but I went into this with a lot of passion because I'm a machine learning engineer and a data scientist by trade. So I built a mental health app that was able to detect and treat, not necessarily cure. I have to be careful about the language I use here because of healthcare reasons, but it could detect with 90% accuracy if somebody felt depressed. That doesn't mean that they might be clinically depressed, but it means that they don't feel really good and they think that they might be depressed, which, you know, you could say, oh, that's really not accurate, or that's maybe kind of hand wavy. But the reality is, I was 90% accurate, and I broke down different kinds of lifestyle patterns that were related to mental health: sleep, diet, exercise, socialization, things like being able to have good sleep hygiene and eating a good healthy balance of fruits, vegetables, minimizing hyper manufactured, what do they call it? It's like, you know, just hyper processed food. Now, this is a good idea in theory. You think, oh, okay, so you're a guy who kind of knows this space. And I've spent a lot of time reading more than 1,000 research papers from tons of different universities and publications. So I felt confident that this was real stuff. But in the end, I think what was most important that I took away from it was the grind of trying to build a company. Truth is, if you can afford it, I would say go ahead and start your business because it'll teach you a lot of lessons. And I hear a lot of other folks who have started businesses, built startups, and even if they fail, they say, yeah, go ahead, just try it, do it. I don't think that it's just people with bias because they failed. They think, oh no, I have to make this all mean something. Otherwise, it's totally a failure and I wasted all this time and money. I don't know how much of it is or isn't that, but I also feel like if you spend the time to reflect, you can learn a lot from whatever experience you have, whether it's good or bad. And if you happen to have a lot of unique experiences, I think that'll teach you and help you learn things about the world, about yourself, about different aspects of whatever it is that you originally had a lot of theories on or thought worked a certain way, but then don't actually. So when we talk about mental health in particular, I thought, oh, everybody's going to want to pay for this because high schoolers, college students, they're all getting more and more depressed these days. The reality is, though, people are very, very difficult to convince to pay for things. Imagine how much you might want to spend on a mobile app If you're the majority of people out there, it's really hard because people will nickel and dime everything when it comes to paying for an app or paying for some sort of small service, especially when it comes to subscriptions. So this is called direct to consumer, or D2C. D2C is very difficult historically, and I didn't know that going in. It was only after I talked to tons and tons of folks that I began to realize, oh wow, okay, it seems like there's this common theme that a lot of people who have more experience than me seem to have as a shared opinion. So now I'm starting to put more weight on that opinion, because originally I thought, oh, that's because they don't know this product. My product is awesome. I'm going to do so great. But at the end of the day, as long as you're learning, that's the most important thing. Just make sure you're not investing money that you can't afford to lose. You need to be responsible for your own financial security and safety. If you are willing to go into a business and try to make everything of it, try to have at least a little bit of a backup. You don't have to have a bajillion dollars and a house and all the things in your life financially secure before you hop into a business, but try to make sure that if you're jumping into a business, at the very least, you'll be able to feed yourself and give yourself shelter for a couple of months. Even if that means crashing with some folks like your parents, friends, whatever, make sure that you at least have emergency money. The reason why I say this is because you don't want to be in a place where you spend all of your time just trying to survive. You want to actually spend time working on the business. It's true. You hear a lot of those success stories where people say, oh man, I was, working as a cashier or in a grocery store, and I was working on my side projects late into the nights and stuff like that. That's great. But if you're able to dedicate your full time and energy just to the thing that you care a lot about, that's more productive. So again, don't invest money you can't lose. And if you want to invest in a company that you build yourself, this is probably a great way to lose all of your money. So we're going to jump into the what happened, and I'm going to help you avoid the same kinds of mistakes that I made in case you want to explore something like this. Expenses. This is also true, by the way, for any kind of project that you might want to start, even if it's a side project, even if it's a hobby, even if it's just a little hustle that you're thinking about trying to take off. Don't spend your money on BS. You have contractors and employees that you might have to pay. There's real estate costs if you want to set up a physical location somewhere. There are website costs that if you want to set up an online website, let's say you're doing drop shipping or something, you need logistics to handle all of this stuff, and that isn't free. There's always another expense. License, banking, merchandise, all these different kinds of fancy things out there that you might need depending on what your side hustle is. If you want to start a fancy clothing business, you probably need to wear fancy clothes yourself. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't spend on those kinds of things that are fundamental for your business, but I am saying be really, really mindful. What do you actually need? Maybe you don't need to hire the best software people right now and build a really fancy, really nice website. That's a mistake I made. I built a really nice, really fancy website right off the bat before I had anybody paying for anything. And it's true, a lot of times in the startup space, people will hustle and people will try to build something and get a lot of customers on that platform first. That's just the way that a lot of them operate, because you need a lot of members using the same thing in order to be able to justify, hey, this thing is popular, this thing is good. Okay, now we can start cranking up the moneymaker. That was my strategy as well, but I didn't execute that well because I was trying to fund this all myself. So what I ended up making, I made a lot of mistakes here. Number one, I started charging people money for something really early when it was just a crappy website. And frankly, I think that probably alone caused no one to want to use my site. I had barely a dozen people using it, and God bless their souls, they were really great in giving me feedback, but at the same time, these people were just such hyper users. In other words, they were just so different from the rest of the people that I couldn't sustainably run my business if I charged these people $5 a month for this thing. And if I'm spending $300 a month just to keep the website running, I'm not talking about the contractors and the employees that I'm paying to build this thing. Just to keep the website running, if it costs me $300, you divide that by, let's say, 10 people. That means I have to charge each one of them $30 for a crappy website. That's not happening. So we have to be careful about what we're spending money on. Try to build the most simple and scrappy and high value thing that you can right away. For me, that probably would have been a checklist, a website that has a really easy free checklist, and you could export it into, let's say, Google Calendar or something. That way you can do the mental health stuff like, oh, brush my teeth, okay, go exercise, all right, start preparing for bed, meditate, and stuff like that. And that could potentially deliver a lot of value. If I could see lots of people clicking it, lots of people downloading, those are great signals. And then I can start to invest more time and energy into that. This is actually another reason why I started this channel with really crappy, low quality videos. If you notice, I'm not really putting a lot of effort into them because frankly, I want to see which of these are actually worth making more content about. I talk about a couple of slightly different areas and I use different titles. I have different experiences that I share within these videos. I want to make sure that when I start making better and better quality content, if I do, that there's actually somebody out there who's going to watch it. So even this YouTube channel, you can take as an example of let's try to do simple and effective first, and then get fancier if that's something that people want or need. So again, if you can, try to spend $0. Go out to people, ask them, see who would want to be interested in whatever it is you have to offer. Maybe you've designed some really cool art and lots of people online really like it. Okay, you're getting a lot of likes, you're getting a lot of comments. That's a signal. Maybe you were trying to build some sort of software. Well, go out there, give it to people, let them know what they think about it. But be careful because a lot of times people's opinions are going to be really different from where they put their money. Look carefully at where people put their money because when people put their money where their mouth is, that's when you have a good product. That's when you actually see the value you bring to people. People are easily going to say, oh, I care about my health. Oh, yeah, I would definitely spend $20, $30 for my health. But then when you actually put them in front of a website and they say, oh, well, this looks so simple. I don't know why I would want to pay $50 for this website. That doesn't seem like a good idea to me. Because it's hard for them to get sold on spending a lot of money, especially if they have to do it all up front. This is another reason why subscriptions are such a powerful model, because a lot of times subscriptions basically say, oh, you just have to pay $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month. That is way, way more reasonable to people than say paying them, asking them to pay $20 or $50 or in a one time for something. So what I mean by this is take, for example, Netflix, right? So you have a Netflix subscription. If they asked you to pay maybe $150 or $200 right off the bat for 1 year subscription, that's probably not going to be as good to most people as if they just asked for $15 at a time or $20 at a time. Part of it is, okay, do I even have that much money right now? And part of it is also, oh, well, it looks like it's less because I only have to pay per month, and then maybe I'll even cancel, so I get to potentially save money. So all of this is to say, try to make sure that you figure out who your customer is and highlight what's unexpected about your particular product so that people can say, oh, this thing is different. This thing is something I need. I can't live without. There's lots of nice to haves out there. But very few people will actually put their money where their mouth is and buy something unless they really need it or they're really crazy about it. Keep that in mind. So this particular slide helps us emphasize the diversity of different customers. It's not just by nationality, though. There's all different kinds of customers. Say you have some sort of grocery delivery company. Well, you're delivering groceries potentially to a lot of different kinds of people. You might be delivering groceries to parents who are too busy. You might be delivering groceries to college kids who don't have a car, or maybe to elderly folks who can't get around that well. You have to be really careful about making sure that you focus on the people who can't live without you. And that can mean literally or that can mean emotionally. They want the benefit of whatever it is that you're offering so much that they are willing to give you money time and time again. That is when you know you've got customers. So figure out who's passionate about the thing and why it matters to them. People want to spend money on a fancier tissue because maybe it's softer on their nose. And maybe it helps prevent burns and chafing on their nose. It could be they want to run away from something, or it could be they want to run towards something. Maybe they just want people to come over to their house and see how fancy their tissues are, so then they think more highly of the host. Figure out what the customer's value add is. This brings us to an important aspect, which is the customers themselves. You have to know really carefully what pain point you're curing. If you don't understand the customer, you shouldn't even try to build the original product, whatever it is you want to make. You can make some really fancy, cool dish, but if you don't know who's actually going to enjoy it, let's say it's got hot sauce and then gluten-free stuff, but then you also add some stuff that has gluten in it. Who's that for? Gluten-free stuff might taste bad, and then the gluten stuff that you add in means the gluten-free people can't eat it. What are you making? Who exactly are you trying to serve? When I'm building this channel, one of the things that I'm hoping for is to help educate people on both business and investments. And the reason why I am so passionate about this is because I see so many people who lack financial literacy, specifically in the US. They don't teach this stuff in school. They don't teach stuff like stocks, options, taxes, long-term revenue. They don't teach stuff like, okay, how does this consumption impact this other company over here? This is stuff that we have to learn by ourselves on the internet, and hopefully we can centralize that, or at least some of that here, for people to say, oh, you know what? That's really interesting. I didn't really know that about options. Let me go look into it more myself. I'm not trying to teach you every single little thing. I don't have the time or energy to do that. So my target audience is the kind of people who are smart enough to go and search stuff up themselves once I show them how to search stuff up. I show them stuff like Investopedia. I show them stuff like Wealthfront or high yield versus regular checking accounts. So if you're not really sure who your specific target audience is, you only have some idea of who they might be. Like, let's say my mental health app, I wasn't really that sure who my audience would be. Then you need to start showing the product or the service that you want to sell to those people. I brought my mental health app around college and I showed it to a lot of people. People really got impressed by the dashboards. They thought that was pretty, that was nice. But what I began to understand is that there is still social stigma for people and mental health. So I thought I was trying to sell a mental health app when in reality, I needed to sell a lifestyle wellness app. I needed to sell something that was a little bit sexier and more hip, or more in with the styles of what people want to pay for. So paying for yoga, that's sexy. Paying for workout classes, that's sexy. Ooh, paying for this cool app, that's a little bit nerdy. So I had to think about all of these things when I started to figure out who my target audience is and how much those people would be willing to pay for my services. And what are those alternatives? Because if people are able to find alternatives, which I ended up deciding, yeah, people are actually not going to find the most benefit by using technology to solve a lot of their mental health problems. In fact, it might be better for them to just go outside, touch grass, find some exercise group to join, and build relationships and social lives that way, which is why I took a step back from the mental health app. But this YouTube channel is also trying to try a bunch of random stuff, because if you look at the format of the different videos I make, they're totally different. There might be different content that I talk about. There might be different styles of communication that I use. There might be different information that I show to people. I'm trying to figure out who I fit the best. I'm swinging a lot. And once I understand a direction that I'm supposed to be swinging in that seems to be getting me a lot of good feedback, I'm going to start swinging a lot harder. That is when I start to spend a lot more time, energy, and effort. You have to be careful. How much are you actually going to spend before you make your first dollar? If you need to spend $1 million before you make any money, is that going to be worth it? That might actually be worth it, okay? It depends on what kind of business you're building. A lot of technology startups do it this way. They raise millions and millions of dollars, 35 million, 10 million, 100 million, 50, all these different kinds of amounts of money. Look at Uber and Lyft, for example. These are not companies that are profitable, but they bring in money. People are willing to pay for this service. They are still burning through a lot of money that they got from investors and venture capitalists, but that doesn't mean they're not on necessarily mean that they're not on the path to profitability. But there has to be a plan. It could be a long-term plan. Maybe it takes you 8 to 10 years because you need to capture a really big metropolis and get everybody to use the app. But once you get to that point, now you're making billions of dollars maybe. It all depends on what your target audience is, what your break-even point is, what your milestones are, how sustainable it is to get there, and if people believe in your vision. There are a lot of people who believed in Amazon. Amazon used to sell books. I mean, some people might say, who the hell still reads? So they almost lost to Barnes & Noble, I believe. And what they ended up doing is, once they got to a point where they were more stable, they came through some difficult times, then they started to compete in different areas. And what they did is they started to lower their prices a lot in order to be competitive in certain areas. Like, let's say you're selling pans. Well, they're going to sell maybe the same kinds of pans from the same supplier as you because they know where you're getting the pans from. And then they're going to charge like 5 cents less or maybe $1 less or something. I don't know. I'm just making up numbers here. Now, that might seem like, wait, that's a terrible strategy. You're not making any profit. But then you kill the competition. And then in that case, you're able to make more profit because now you jack up the prices. This is a long-term strategy that isn't sustainable if you don't have enough money to burn. So you have to look carefully at whatever your business plan is and think, how much money do I have to burn here? When do I have to call it if things aren't working out? Or when can I actually start turning on the money making and start charging people for stuff? So I'm going to go into some example cases now in order to give you a little bit more of a concrete example rather than just talking about these abstracts. So let's pretend there's this guy named Alberto. This dude loves soccer and he wants to start a coaching business. And let's say he's like a college or a high school kid. All right. So he's not somebody who has a lot of money right now and he doesn't really have a lot to buy equipment. But what this guy can do is try to go and find people who are willing to pay in advance in order to start his business. This particular example has this guy going out there and saying, okay, I have this idea. I need people to buy into this. I need people to see the value that I'm going to bring them. You can consider those parents who pay in advance as investors. They're investing in this business. Now he has the capital he needs to start buying equipment. Well, now the next part of it is, how do you build your network? Some people say that the product doesn't matter as much as the distribution. It depends on what area you're in. Say you're in music, you make a really awesome song. Maybe you need to be able to distribute it to lots of places to actually make money from that song. Otherwise, people would say, well, I can listen to it on SoundCloud or Spotify or YouTube. Why would I want to pay for this song? So that's one example. There could be another example, like, if you're trying to build some sort of software. Microsoft does this a lot. They build software for specific customers, big companies. Now, if you're friends with a lot of other big companies, then your distribution network is already really easy because you just go to your friends and say, hey, I know you like that software I built, or at least you're willing to pay me for it. Will you be willing to pay me for this other software? So building relationships with your customers is really important because that is how you strengthen these distribution systems. In this particular case, Alberto needs to go to soccer games in order to get his face out there, get his name out there. And maybe he might offer some stuff that will make people think, okay, this is somebody who is offering some value. I might potentially want to try to get more value from this, and I might be willing to pay for that. It's both an opportunity for lots of people to understand the value that he brings, and also an opportunity for him to understand who he's offering the most value to. So he, let's pretend, goes to a lot of these games, and he's cheering on these college athletes or high school kids or whatever. And what he ends up doing is maybe showing these people, hey, I'm here. I'm able to give you good information that helps your muscles feel better, more flexible, that makes you feel like you're more in touch with the game. I like this feeling. I think I might keep wanting to get more of this from this person. So he's not only demonstrating that he's consistent when he keeps showing up, but he's also showing, hey, there's a lot I can offer you here. It's kind of like a freemium thing, like there's the free part of whatever he's offering, and then slowly he says, okay, if you want more, you got to pay for it. That's just the preview. So in this particular case, because I wanted to make this a positive one, I say, all right, let's imagine the student is really successful, right? So he has some sort of student or some group of students, and one of them ends up doing so well that other parents start to see this, are willing to pay for lessons ahead of time as well. And then eventually he starts his own side gigs like summer camps or weekend lessons for individuals. At the end of the day, he started with a very specific core customer. Parents, maybe they're really competitive. Maybe they want to brag about their kids, or kids who are really serious about soccer, who really love it too. You might think that the customer would be kids who love soccer, but that might not actually be the case because the people who are paying money are the parents. So you do have to pay attention to moments like this. Now, as he starts to make more money, he realizes, oh, I could make additional money from these more casual people too. And now that I have more money, I can start doing stuff like putting up flyers, doing advertising on social media and stuff like that. Boom, now you have a community, and now you've built reputation within this area that you are the soccer guy. So I'm going to do one more example, and then we'll probably try to wrap things up. Marcos is, let's say, this dude who's in a camera shop, and visitors are mostly tourists who speak a lot of different languages. So he can't really communicate that much with them, but he can try to pay attention to what they're doing to help him figure out who these tourists are. So this ties back to the idea of the customer. Before, with the Marcos example, that was, with the Alberto example, that was more of an emphasis on the expenses and trying to scale up accordingly. Now, with the Marcos example, I want to focus more on making sure that we understand who our target audiences are. So what he needs to ask is probably, what are people putting a lot of their money towards? What are people buying? Because, again, people put their money where their mouth is. And if that's true, that is usually the case when people are buying stuff and they're talking about it. That's them putting their money where their mouth is. Then you want to follow that to understand more deeply, what value is it that this person is getting? Is it something about their reputation? Is it something about reducing pain? Is it they're chasing something or running away from something? So what Marcos realizes is, oh, these are rich mofos who are super artsy. Okay, well, I guess I could sell them fancy Banksy art that I mimic, or that I, use AI to generate or something. I don't know. He does something and he makes his Banksy dollars. All right, you're free to unsubscribe now. I'm sorry. Anyway, the numbers are something that you always have to pay attention to as you start bringing in customers and as you start making some money. So you want to make sure that you have a good timeline of how do you get to the first dollar, but then afterwards, how do you get to the next milestone that you want? So how do you get more customers, or how do you get from one customer to 10, 10 to 100, 100 to 1,000? Who's supporting your ideas? Get those testimonials from people who are both really happy with the product and service, or who really, really, really hate it. Maybe some folks really, really, really hate it, and hey, that's okay. That just means that you don't need to spend your time and energy on those customers. So once you actually start getting some customers, another thing that you might want to think about is upselling. How can you get those customers to share more of that particular product or service with other people? You see a lot of times apps will pay you some amount of money or do some sort of incentive in order for you to share the app with other people. Like, let's say Lyft. If your friend joins, you both get, like, let's say $5 or something, or DoorDash, Instagram. Instacart. A lot of these companies need network effects. They need a lot of people using their service to actually make money. This isn't always true, but it just depends on your particular business model. Keep in mind this really important idea. It's not a hard and fast rule, but this is something that people see all of the time. 80-20. A lot of things in life seem to follow this thing where 80% of something is 20% of something else. So for example, 80% of your revenue probably comes from 20% of the actual customers who are paying and interacting with your service. If you look at mobile apps, I don't know if you know this, but I think something like 2%, or maybe even less, maybe only 1% of people who use these free apps actually pay for anything. But a lot of times, those people who are paying for stuff pay a ton of money. They might be spending hundreds or thousands of dollars on some game that everyone else is playing and everyone's enjoying for free, but which they are basically sustaining because of all of the money that they pour into it. This is why you see loot boxes and different kinds of games nowadays, because those are so profitable that what you can think of is that these richer players are basically subsidizing the game to be free for everyone else. And they get a couple of different cosmetic perks that hopefully don't really impact the game that much. So it's not just a pay to win kind of game. But going back to the 80-20 principle, if you have a whole bunch of diverse customers, you still have to try to stay focused. You might get testimonials or you might get different kinds of feedback from those less important customers. You gotta stay focused on the people who are paying you the most, or who could potentially pay you the most. 80% of the world's wealth is only owned by 20% of the world's people. Keep that in mind. So, again, coming back to this YouTube channel, I have basically zero expenses on this YouTube channel right now because everything I'm using is free or stuff that I've already had. Then from the viewers and customers that I'm trying to interact with, I'm not 100% sure right now. I'm guessing that people who have very long attention spans will probably find these videos more interesting, because these videos are spanning 20 to 50 minutes, I'm guessing. This video is already closing in on about 35 minutes. So definitely can't be people who don't have long attention spans. And I want to say, ideally, people who are a little bit more mature, who are ambitious, and who think about these things at a slightly deeper level than just, oh, number go up, okay, me buy. But at the same time, I'm hoping to try and keep things relatively light so that it's still entertaining. It's not like somebody's just throwing a textbook at you. Now, for the advertisers, I am hoping that they come to this platform and that they would want to partner with me so that they can sell their financial products and whatever it is that they want to sell. Ideally, they are people who care about my viewers, and my viewers ideally would be people who are higher income, people who are willing to spend money, and people who are relevant for those advertisers. So what I mean by that is, take for example, let's say if a big company like Wealthfront or Coinbase wanted to advertise with me. Well, they might look at my channel, look at how I'm talking about investments and talking about all these different kinds of monetary policies, stuff like that. And they might say, well, it seems like a lot of people who are interested in this guy's channel would probably also be interested in what we have to provide. So it makes sense for us to give this person some amount of money and potentially have tons of customers sign up for our services. If something is free, then you are probably the product. This channel is free for you. You are my product, and advertisers are my actual customers. Now, that doesn't mean that you aren't also my customers in a way, because I probably would get some amount of revenue from likes and subscriptions. I'm not sure how that works. I'm still trying to figure that out. But one of the things that I personally want to try to do is treat the viewers as my customers as well. Because truthfully, I think there are a lot of times out there where people only focus on the people who are directly bringing them money. So for example, Google is actually a platform for advertisers, and social media a lot of times are a platform for advertisers. The people who are on those websites or on those apps are just basically cannon fodder. This is why they try to make those kinds of things addicting. I don't want to make my channel addictive. I just want to make something that's good content that causes us to have great engagement and conversations, and ideally teaches you stuff. I'd like to treat this channel as almost more of a back and forth with my viewers rather than just me directing or dictating information out there. Because let's be honest here, we don't all know everything, but we all have access to the internet. So it's not like any one of us is necessarily that much more experienced unless we've spent a lot of time in an area. I have spent a decent amount of time in a couple of areas. I want to share that with you, but you might have different perspectives because you might have more experience in some area. So all of this is just to say, I care about my viewers and I really want to make sure that I'm delivering real value while simultaneously caring about the quality of the content for both viewers and advertisers. I don't have any numbers. This channel is pretty new. Who knows? Maybe I'll get 0 views on all of this. But this is my timeline right now. I'm trying a whole bunch of different stuff. Going to try to see what gets a lot of views, comments, and subscriptions. And then I'm going to try to hone in, make more high quality videos, maybe shorter, maybe longer, and then figure out if this is really worth my time and energy. It's going to take a while. I don't expect it to be an overnight thing. And I honestly have no idea whether this channel will take off at all. Maybe it just kaputs into thin air. Maybe everyone thinks this is boring, long-winded. But at the end of the day, I have to try. So what are people probably saying about my channel? I just added this in because this was part of the template slides, and I thought this was just kind of funny. I imagine that people are probably going to look at my channel right now and think, oh, it seems a little schizophrenic. Like, who exactly is your audience? You have a lot of different styles, a lot of different things going on. Isn't this just also mostly gambling? This seems really risky and stuff like that. Yeah, I am. I've been trading for the past 10 years. I have a decent amount of experience when it comes to understanding the markets, and I've made a lot of mistakes over the years. They've taught me hard lessons, but I've also ended up with a lot of success because of those hard lessons. I've made tens of thousands of dollars, not millions, not hundreds of thousands of dollars, but a decent amount. I knew what to do at the right time, and that comes from all the information that I learned previous, all the different sources of information that I gathered, and all the different mistakes that I've made. This channel is really for whoever finds it useful right now. And yes, it's very high risk. I don't expect you to copy or even try to play with the things that I talk about. Just learn. Just have a good time and have fun here. Well, that's all I have for today. I hope you like and subscribe. My YouTube channel is Invest with Dave. If you have any feedback, positive or negative, leave it in the comments so that I can get better at this stuff. Thanks so much for your time. I hope to catch you guys in the next one.